Good morning, everybody, wherever you are in the world. So you can see Annie here. I'm Annie is up in York in the UK today. I've just flown in from a kind of work and a little bit of pleasure trip from Portugal. I'm down here in Cambridge today in the UK. Real welcome to everyone that's joined us. I can see a few people that we've met over the last couple of weeks. Very interesting, actually, that this talk that Annie's about to give, we gave. About 100 people have joined us. We've shown it 3 times. This is by popular demand, the final run of this. We kind of had a pre-run into some local markets in Africa and the Middle East. This talk is a rerun by popular demand of Annie's keynote, which was day 2 in the AI and industrial theatre at Smart Manufacturing and Engineering Week. So I can see a couple of people joining and just coming in now that we met at the show. So that's really, really good. Nice to see you. We will be recording this session. What we're seeing is between the three sessions, we've had over 100 people join or register. We've got quite a number of registrations for today, but what we're tending to see is a lot of people are looking at the recording afterwards. So I just want to say a big mention to and hi to people that have registered for today that are going to catch up on demand, which tends to be more of a trend. And then finally, really nice to meet everyone today in the session. Annie always really enjoys taking a few questions. So if you have questions, we don't mind. At the top, you've got chat and Q&A. I normally get a question about which one to use, but please feel free to use them. The other thing you can do is just DM me directly. What we'll do is, I've already got a couple of questions that have been emailed in, Annie, from people that can't join and going to look at us digitally. But I think really at that point, what I want to do is give us a super quick background to the Data Shack. For nearly 25 years, just under 25 years, Annie, our founder, and Data Shack have been delivering to industrial data needs. We deliver, we sit a lot in process around Six Sigma, and what is now becoming AI. We didn't call it back then, or AI back then. We tend to think of ourselves as data science, and we problem solve across factories and plants and processes. I think at that point, what I want to do is just hand over to Annie. I'm going to drop off now. I'll come back on towards the end. But I'm going to hand you over today to the star of the show today, and that's Annie Taylor, our founder and CEO.
Hi guys, everyone can hear me clearly, all good. Thank you guys, and thank you, Al. Don't say star of the show, it makes me feel I'm just the girl behind door number 13. I love solving problems. I'm a statistician, data scientist by training, and led me to start the Data Shack almost 25 years by the end of this year, 25 years ago. Guys, welcome to today. I'm really, really excited to be speaking to you and kind of repeating this talk. We have more time in the show. We had 20 minutes. So for those of you who are attending for a second time or saw me live at the show, this will be a little bit longer, and it allows us a little bit more time for Q&A, and you get the bonus use case I was talking about. 20 minutes for the 5 use cases are not a lot of time. Actually, one of our mining customers asked us, it was one of their use cases was theirs, and some of the guys hadn't actually seen it. They're from other areas, and we repeated that bit for them in person. So please, guys, if there's one of these use cases, I go through them fairly quickly. But if you want to learn more about them, we've got white papers and use case documentation on these. If you're interested in hearing more about it, please let us know. A lot of the time, and I think I said it in my talk, I kind of play BS, and I'll work through it, BS bingo. When I go to these tech shows, sometimes I attend a lot of big data and data science ones and AI ones. Specifically, the manufacturing ones are better, but you go to these big tech vendors, and what you hear is you're able to do this, or this is possible. I like to say, this is not possible. We have done this. it's hard to trust somebody as a partner working with you if they haven't done this before, or if they sell you the art of the possible versus doing it. And that's really what this is all about for you. So with that, we'll talk today a little bit about what are the trends looking like the AI trends in manufacturing. What's that hype behind things, and is it really happening, and are people adopting it? The second part of my talk goes around using a structured approach, a bimodal approach, because a lot of the time you'll see some of the statistics I'll be talking about. People start with a single use case. They sometimes waste a lot of time because they're learning. It takes them a very long time, costs a lot of money, and build the infrastructure to scale very quickly. So talking a little bit about that, and secondly, just marrying those very good manufacturing and processing plants use cases with AI methodology and Six Sigma and all the processing methodologies that you guys get taught in your engineering courses and these things, and the way you run your business. And then obviously the meat that you came for, the real world success stories. So guys, just some statistics here. Last year, this is from last year, I spoke last year about 5 tips for getting started very fast. So we did address the methodology and things that we know our customers. And guys, we've been doing this for a very, very long time. As Al said, it wasn't always called AI. AI has been evolving over the last 20 years, certainly. It wasn't always called that. The terms and the things over the last, say, 10 years have kind of exploded to being a household name. Never was. But 63% last year of factory and manufacturing and industry, heavy industry leaders told us that they want to, it's within their top 4 or 5 KPIs to have AI embedded across their processes, but they don't know where to start. And the manufacturer, the people who put on the show, Hennick Research, actually published this as a paper for us before the show. 9% of them had started with some success, but not as much as they should have. And then, can you guess, of course, what 85% of those projects, what happened to 85% of those projects? Unfortunately, they fail because they don't follow the right building blocks, they don't follow the right steps, and it takes a lot of time and costs a lot of money if you're not doing it right. So really, we're here today to kind of give you some guidelines and make sure that you don't fall into that category, and you get started and you do it right the first time, because it costs a lot of money if you don't, guys. You guys are really savvy. You've built huge, big businesses. So this year's survey, which beginning of this year, told us that people have started, but 48% of them are still uncomfortable with deploying AI. At least this year, we're in a better space. 43% of you have told us that you actually have identified a specific use case, but maybe only 1, maybe only 2. What are the top 3 things that you told us? What are the things that you want to use AI for? What are the top topics that manufacturers are today sitting with AI and in their value chain? Reshoring, making sure that manufacturing comes back, with all the tariffs and all the changes happening in the economic landscape. Talking about scope 3 emissions, and we have our partners that actually exhibited with us at the show, Changing Planets, here in the room with us today. Mark, maybe in the Q&A sessions, I'd like for you to just chip in and give us your 2 cents worth as well, talking about emissions and sustainability within your supply chains, because that's coming, especially if you export to the EU, and if you've a manufacturing facility or production facility within the EU, this is coming your way. Scope 3 reporting, those things have to come with your financial statements. So be seeing a very big move, and therefore our work with Changing Planets and making sure that I'll talk a little bit more about that. That's one of our use cases. So guys, if we really look at this landscape, the challenge for us, you guys know what you want. One of the number 1 work challenges here is your workforce. And certainly from last year, we've done some really good AI readiness assessments with some of the customers that spoke to us last year, starting to build out their AI platforms for them and making sure they're addressing the right problems. The number one thing, even they told us, but the manufacturers' research told us that they worried about their workforce readiness, AI infrastructure, and ethical AI coming to the fore. There's a lot of work being done by the ethics bodies around this and making sure that when we deploy this within our business, we're doing it correctly. Also, the impact on sustainability, because the faster and the more, especially with Gen AI, the processing speed needed has a huge impact on the environment. But really, guys, 47% of your growth will come from your productivity and your efficiency. Therefore, very important. One of the first use cases I want to just talk about, and I'm going to get there before I talk to the use cases themselves. But guys, if we really look at this, this is a nice picture I attended at the beginning of the year, about March, April, at the National Manufacturing Summit in Coventry. Had the absolute pleasure of attending a masterclass by Professor Hendrik von Scheel, who's this is my picture with credit, talking about, especially in the landscape as it is today. You will only get so far in growth figures. If you look at the growth figures on the left-hand side and you look at on the right-hand side, your, where you're going to, you can start trying to outlast your competition or out-engage them or outperform them. That's like a 5% growth rate a year, 5-10%. If you really want to be at the top of your game, the world-class companies, you want to outcompete and outlead. What is it that creates you that competitive advantage on the right-hand side of the slide? You really need to have core differentiation. You need to create yourself a space where you are the uncontested leader, or at least you make the competition irrelevant with what you're doing. Those are where you're seeing the much bigger, above 20% growth rates within your business, which is needed to survive and sustain today. But I really like these methodologies. We actually, in our sustainability efforts, are working with Professor von Scheel because he actually advises the World Economic Forum on the mega trends happening in industry, and what do you guys have to start preparing for and making sure that you're in the room and having those conversations. So talking around, guys, now those are some of the stats. Talking around that bimodal approach, as I said to you guys, we want to start fast. We don't want to fail, but we want to make sure we build the capacity to scale. So we've developed our own in-house bimodal approach to helping our customers. And guys, this is 25 years of, not all of these hairs are blonde. Some of them are gray, I promise you. A lot of them are gray. 25 years worth of working with customers to get them started, to build capacity within their businesses. And it's not just tech, it's making sure we're looking at the right things, we're looking at the right data. So it's an approach, and we've worked, and we've got this as a number one, an assessment pack, but we've also got this as a whole AI maturity plan that we help you embed within your business. The first block here explains how to start fast. We do go and work with you, do an assessment, see if the use cases you're thinking of are actually ready and are actually good use cases for AI and advanced analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, and machine learning. Are they the right things? Are you addressing the right things? Do you have the data? Do you have all the things necessary? So while we start with your first use case, we prioritize them. We pick the one we think you will be most successful, and then test it through every one of our templates to make sure, do you have what's in block 2? Do you have the data and infrastructure, the data management capacity, AI governance, all of the things? Very importantly, talent and culture. We spoke with one of the very large German motor manufacturers that has plants in the UK. And, the first thing they told us was the 5 people who know what we want to do with AI or kind of have an idea of the use cases sit in this room. I've got a huge thousands of people working in these 2-3 plants. How do I make sure I attract and I keep and I train the right talent and culture? So there's all these, for it to be successful and for you to end up on the right hand side here with a smart factory and an AI center of excellence, you need to make sure you tick all the right boxes. We can take you from one use case to factory enabled, so that once we've solved one and we've tested that you have all the other things in place, you can very quickly slot in those use cases. In the US, I've read some studies in the last year or two that basically says to get the first AI use case off the ground sometimes takes companies a year. And cost them in excess of $2 million. Guys, that should not be the case for you. Mostly we work in 6-week, 8-week sprints to get you started on your first use case. You'll see the 1, 2, 3, 4. It shouldn't take you more than 1-2 months to at least start getting benefit from the first use case, and to make sure you're prepped to scale. On level 3 here and level 4, you already make sure that you've got the rest, and you can just start plugging in new use case, and you've got a model operations environment where I can manage models, I can version them, I can deploy them very quickly back to my production floor or to my mining environment, or whatever your process may be. Making sure that you can now actually have intelligence-driven AI center of excellence. You've got advanced use cases you can plug in. You can monitor and get feedback from these. Are they performing well? Are they telling us what we should be doing in as I said, a model ops environment? This should not take you longer than 6 months to have a few use cases solved, right? And that's what we, trying to help and make sure that we can help you with. So, of course, if you're interested, on our website, scan this QR code, go to our AI readiness assessments. It ticks all these boxes, checks where you're at, make sure we can scale you, and when you move on, you're actually already well matured. We don't want to marry you for years and years. We want to make you capable yourself and make sure that we build you that center of excellence that can get you started very, very quickly. But guys, without further ado, I want to get to the use cases. Again, as I said to you guys, my worst nightmare is I walk up to a stand and I go, okay, what are where does your technology platform, if you're a tech company, work? Where has it worked? And they go, oh, it's possible to use it in fast-moving consumer goods. It's possible. So I said, no, not what's possible. What have you done? So guys, really, these are important things, because we saw from the statistics, 48% of you guys are still quite sort of weary of, can this work? Does this work? Does it bring ROI? And if you don't put those monitoring and feedback loops in the system, you don't know how these things are performing and are they bringing you real value. So, this is just a snippet, guys. We deal largely 80 to 90% of our business sits within large pharma, oil and gas, mining, fast-moving consumer goods, packaging, those kinds, and food processing, brewing, and things like that. We've had years and years of problems, and guys, you'll find some of these problems are similar. But the first use case I want to talk about is training and talent, because where have we been successful? You saw that the right talent and the workforce was something people were really worried about. So I want to talk a little bit about some of our customers where it's been really successful as a first use case. Then talking about the scope 3 emissions and supply chains, and how we are using AI in these supply chains to help customers make better decisions on who they buy from, and knowing who they are buying from down, not just your tier 1 supply chain, but tier 2 and tier 3, all the way down, and understanding that landscape. Then talking a little bit about energy, oil and gas. We've got 2 very large global customers we deal with, one being the British one, can't name names or won't name names, and one very, very large multinational, but headquartered out of Houston in the US. Then we want to talk a little bit about AI in fast-moving consumer goods. We deal with cigarette industry, foods, beer, and telling you a little bit about some of the use cases there. And again, these are one of a few. If you want to learn more about some of the other use cases, they are available. Please let the team know. And lastly, talking about heavy industry and metals processing, again, mining, steel processing, gold, platinum, diamonds, to minting coins. Those are few of our sort of subset of customers that we deal with in the industry. So training and talent, guys, making sure that these days your staff hear not only about AI, but generative AI. How do we create the culture in our business? Number one, with the right ethics. People are really worried, especially with generative AI. Is it safe? There's very good best practices to be learned, and making sure you're doing the right things. So again, I bring you back. Why am I talking about a use case like that? This to start with. The challenge that was this year identified by the manufacturer was workforce readiness, AI infrastructure, and ethical AI. Those are the things, and workforce being very, very important, because those 47% growth comes from productivity and efficiency. Making sure your teams know how to drive this thing that you've put in front of them, and what does it mean, and how do they make decisions from what you are giving them or enabling them to do. So this is from my talk from last year. It was my tip 5 was how to train your team for AI. And this is a little bit of a joke, guys. I no longer am young. When I was in my late 20s after university, and my first consulting job as a consulting statistician at that time was to a guy called Harry, and I'll protect Harry's surname, but he's still my customer many years away now. The first day when I walked into Harry's office, he said to me, "Good morning, sweetheart, and where's your boss?" So today we're still customers, but the moral of this is that Harry gave me a chance after we had a bit of a giggle, and I said to my boss is making me coffee, he'll be right in, but if I'm stupid, you can chuck me out the room. We had a giggle, but he had a really high degree of technical and engineering skill. I had a high degree of data science and statistical skill, and we could attack his problems and solve them together. So, my tip for you, and my tip last year in my talk, was always going to be that you've got the guys who know your business. Don't go hire perhaps outside IT type personnel. If I can tell you from my experience, you get somebody who calls himself a data scientist out of university, who have hardly sort of skimmed the top of really just learning some theory around these things. Far better take the person who knows your company, knows what questions to ask, and teach them these skills. It can be taught, because you'll see some of the statistics I'll be showing you. So I'm going to give you some practical examples of some of our customers who really are getting it right. In mining, got very large customers like Anglo American Platinum, De Beers. These customers in the African, we deal with them across Canada, South America, Africa. You can hear my accent. I was born in South Africa, even though I'm from British descent. And also their supply chain operations out of the East. But really working with Anglo Platinum specifically, we actually, in September every year, they've got a new intake of metallurgical and chemical engineers. We take them through how to marry Six Sigma and all of the methodologies they learned in engineering in university, and college. We take them and we teach them how to marry that with data science and AI skills, and how to solve problems very quickly using both of those methodologies. It's been really successful. We've been doing it for the last 10 years at least with these customers. In oil and gas, this is one of our very largest training customers of all. We teach a data literacy course. We train up to 300 to 500 staff a year. They've got a 6,000 sort of level workforce being identified for this type of training. We've had a contract with them since 2018, and we've been training data literacy, data analytics 1 and 2, data science for engineers and for business professionals, Gen AI, drones and robotics, and that's ConocoPhillips. So huge organization. We train hundreds of people a year through that program. And guys, these are guys like you. They learn these skills and they learn them very well and start solving use cases. In fast-moving consumer goods, of course, we deal with people like British American Tobacco, SAB Miller, which is now merged with AB InBev, who are the Budweiser suppliers. We teach their teams, the teams who go on Six Sigma training immediately come on our training as well. Industrial data analytics, statistical process control, process optimization, improvement, Six Sigma, and how, again, to marry that with their AI and data science skills. And lastly, we don't have permission to name this customer, but they're a high-tech semiconductor manufacturing company. We run, again, their data literacy programs across from 1 year to 2 hour per week sessions across their business. This is finance, supply chain, front end, back end manufacturing, distribution. They're global. Again, we train people right from their plants in Manchester, Hamburg, China, and some of the supply chain people that sits in Kuala Lumpur. So guys, you can get it right. You can train a large workforce. If you're organized, you have a plan, and you can get it right. So skipping to use case number 2, AI-empowered supply chains. Now, here, I want to give huge kudos to Changing Planets. Changing Planets in this room was once our customer. They started out being our customer, being sent to us by a tech vendor because they had some really interesting questions to answer. They one of the first agency that were talking about looking at scope 3 and analysis. And if you don't know what scope 3 is all about making sure you understand your top suppliers on tier 1 are the people that supply you, but on tier 2 is the people that supply them. And tier 3 is the people that supply them. So very quickly, guys, top 10 suppliers down to hundreds of thousands here at the bottom. And you need to understand, and especially in the EU, you are being forced to understand with a carbon rating, who are you buying from and how green that supply chain. And that's what scope 3 is all about. But not only just, you don't need to just understand them from a carbon point of view and their carbon footprint, but you can understand a lot about them. And especially in the breweries, we worked a long time improving their quality and efficiency and service to their customers by looking into their supply chain and analyzing the quality of what was coming into their plant. So we already sort of prepped ourselves and started working with Changing Planets for a very different approach for scope 3. But I'm going to talk about two customers and 2 very different dilemmas in this case. Our first customer had really big data, meaning, guys, if you look at scope 3, if you just look at your top 20 suppliers and you look at their top 20, and if you're looking down to tier 4, you're sitting onto 160,000 people that you need to be analyzing. You can see this customer. This customer has a 29% carbon rating. They really need to improve. They've looked at their 20 top tier suppliers. That if they just asked those guys to know about their top 20, that was 400. 8,000, 160,000. And you need to understand, this is a big data problem, guys. And this is when Changing Planets became for us not just a customer, but a partnership. And we've started developing our carbon module with them. We're used to doing AI. They really know what they're doing in getting you rated, making sure that you have all the right building blocks to up your rating. And you can also see that a lot of these customers were below 20%, which is on the red of the scale. There's only a few of them that sat really in the top here. But understanding these very complex supply chains, because some of yours on tier 2 become a tier 1 and so forth, this is a big data problem. And, the other customer had a bit of a opposite problem. They wanted to understand their supply chain, but getting the data from your suppliers was like pulling teeth, because getting them all to enrich that data for you to know about them what you need to know. Again, That becomes a small data problem that has to become a big data problem. But gathering that data is sort of another another problem. The top customer was a big German. The second customer was it's a forestry company, and just getting their top 20 suppliers on board, onboarding their suppliers, and making sure, those are some of the challenges being faced. But what do we start knowing? This is some screenshots from the work that we've done, understanding the networks. If you look at your top 20, that they overlap. How often do you deal with them? How much money do you spend? How much money do they spend with certain of their suppliers? These networks are everywhere. You need to understand their interrelationships, their networks. Who are your suppliers? Who are their suppliers? What types of products are they buying? What are their ratings? What do they buy? There's you've got lots of moving parts within your processes, specifically chemical processing and things like that, and how to reach out. How does that data reach you with IoT and logistics? So guys, it becomes big data problem very quickly. So I'm going to leave it there, but we need to make sure and that there's also places for you to be able to gather the data, ask the questions you want to ask, and be able to compare how these people rate within their industry and explain this to them, how they can make themselves better. And our work with Professor von Schkill specifically has allowed us to start monetizing, helping you. He speaks about a sin tax. If you're in the EU, you're paying tariffs and you're paying especially for carbon, you're paying if you're not, you're getting taxed higher if you're not, you don't have a good carbon rating, and you're being taxed for that. It shouldn't be a sin, guys. It shouldn't be a liability. It was designed by the World Economic Forum to actually be a reward for good behavior. So if you use it correctly, you help your supply chain become green. There are tax incentives for you to doing that. Also, carbon credit training is coming into the fray. Make it an asset rather than a sin tax or a liability. These are the things we're building into our platform currently and making sure that you can use this to your advantage, knowing more about your supply chain, but also driving the right behavior with your supply chain and their supply chains. If you help them do that, there's lots and lots of benefit for you at the end of the day in carbon credit. Guys, use case 3. I want to leave some time for Q&A. Of course, use case 3, energy, oil and gas, from predictive analytics to AI and Gen AI. This customer is the British one I was talking about. We actually started working with them, with our drone partner here in the UK, Drone Major. They are an advisory body. They advise companies on UAV. And when you think of a drone, it's not just the thing that flies, it's underwater autonomous systems, underwater welders, robots, and so forth. This project was worked on with Drone Major. We do all of the analytics work. We do all of the building the models, presenting it to the business, the pretty stuff. They do the getting the right equipment in there, advising and making sure it's fit for purpose, and they buy the best in class. So guys, we started with this customer when there's sensors everywhere. They have to be able to monitor not only sensors that's in very harsh environments. This is a top drill rig at Top Drive. It's got over 2,000 sensors on it. They can't just stop the thing and take it off. It only can stop it once every 5 years. It's very expensive, and it's designed to run 100% 24/7. So we need to understand every little thing about this, including things like visual inspections and rust, and these things had to be fully automated. The monitoring of various visual parameters and sensor parameters. So I can tell you, when we started working with this customer, the old way of a drill rig inspection looked like this. Person, it would take sometimes longer than 2 weeks, cost over £200,000 a pop, because you had to have a helicopter on standby for safety, rubber ducks, all the necessary things in place to make sure that your staff is safe for safety and health conditions and so forth. This took an enormous amount of time for an enormous amount of money at the end of the day. We started automating these with drone inspections. These days, the drone launches when it needs to launch. It doesn't have an operator. In the beginning, it had an operator to learn the patterns and where it needed to go. Today, it's a fully automated system. In the beginning, we had the scenario you see here, and we use machine learning algorithms to turn the data from image into actual data, pixel by pixel, to understand that we could give them on the right-hand side here a corrosion score that they could act upon. When it's blue and it's green, it's fine. Blue needs some regular maintenance. Red and yellow starting to be real serious defects within this environment. So we could use this to come up with corrosion scores that informed where and when they should do maintenance. But guys, making sure that we could do proactive maintenance, there were automatic alarms and a to-do list based on the actual needs very quickly, making sense of the data in an automated fashion, started not being enough. Because we then started collecting and enriching that data with text. If it's a corrosion score of 0.41 or 0.28, what needs to be done? If we can train the model can be used by generative AI, by large language models. So today, after all of that work, we've actually gotten them to actually generative AI, where they've got an assistant, a maintenance assistant here on the right-hand side. It's a little a virtual assistant. They can go and open the app. It will tell them the top priorities for maintenance today. The corrosion score is at 0.28. If they submit it, it tells them what needs to be done. The rig is compromised, the recommendation, and this comes from large language models and a detailed description of what the drone has seen. Rust has caused uneven surface in this area, should be addressed within the week. So immediately you can see how their AI capability and automation has really moved from a low level to a very, very high technological level. So use case number 4, guys, this talks about fast-moving consumer goods. Again, I only can address one in the time allocated, and we've got use cases for all of these. Please come talk to us if you're in fast-moving consumer goods, foods, beer, packaging, cigarettes. As I say, we've I think British American Tobacco, not I think, I know, has been our customer since 2002. Very, very, very long time. The use case I'm addressing is actually for our brewing customer. And the problem ended up being glass manufacturing of their supplier. So we actually realize, and they call this beer loss. If you look at these bottles have a full height. So they've got lasers, it fills hundreds of bottles a minute. They've got a laser measuring, the bottle is full, the bottle is full, the bottle is full. What started happening is these bottles left no beer. We started to understand, we needed to understand, are we somewhere losing this beer, or what's going on? What ended up happening, it was actually the bottle diameters and some of the quality of the in and outside wands of the glass sort of malperformed. We did full analysis for them, and we implemented some things that we could check for it very quickly. We looked at things like experimental design, root cause analysis, algorithms that very quickly looks at every area of that process and predicts what might happen given the scenario currently. And optimized algorithms that will actually be put in place in their control plans to say to them, look, if this continues happening for the next 10 minutes, you're going to have these following 3 problems. And that's kind of what we started with in their plant. But we needed to go back to their supplier, the Miller. We went back to Console, their glass supplier, and we actually saw what was causing these issues. They now deliver a Six Sigma report with every truck that gets delivered into their plant. They will not accept the product if this report has not come from the system, from their supplier before the time. We learned that there was huge issues with their temperature and smelting processes. There was batch-to-batch variation on specific production lines, and they had some issues with some of their measurement systems. So we could fix it with the supplier that fixed it for our customer, who is their customer, right? So we automated and implemented for them online control chart dashboards to monitor these parameters and diameters. Full Six Sigma reports, as I said, and certificates of analysis generated automatically, batch to batch, as the trucks leave their plant. The customer already has it, and the customer can view manufacturing processes before the materials land on their site. Our customer was really happy. Their waste decreased by a huge amount. Sales increased to their customer. They're far more likely to buy from them if they can deliver these things upfront. And, you know, they really do well in their monthly audits, and several times won Supplier of the Year to this customer. So, you know, this is a very practical how to implement all of these building blocks and making sure that you use the algorithms for the things that are burning within your business, the things that you can solve, and the things that AI is really, really good for. So this is our last use case, guys. Again, as I say, we deal with heavy industry, metals processing, mining, mining specifically platinum, gold, and diamonds, some iron ore customers as well, but on a smaller scale. And then minting of coins. That's on the other side of that process. Actually, one of our steel customers supply to our minting customers blanks, steel rolls that gets made into coins and gets electroplated. So this is De Beers diamond mining company. We've dealt with them since 2004 about. Worked within their process and continuous improvement with a division called CBI, Continuous Business Improvement, for many years, embedding AI into their continuous improvement and Six Sigma fraternity. But since 2011, we've also been working with them in illicit diamond trade, and that's some bonus use case I have. I'll mindful of time, and I don't use too much of your time today. But we've worked since 2011 with them in analyzing people networks, syndicates, and so forth, because that's a huge loss to their business, illicit diamond trade and diamonds being stolen out of the business. And some of the work I can unfortunately not talk about, but it's really interesting work understanding people behavior and what creates a demand, and how their processes may or may not be manipulated. This is a safety and health. So safety and health for them, huge health, environment, quality, and security. So we work with them, safety and security, health, environment, and quality across their business. So we analyzed safety incidents. In this case, this is just a safety example. The security example is less or is far more confidential. We look at near misses and loss of life, and we monitor this with smart sensors directly from the PPE, the conditions and environment. What did we learn? What did we implement? Movement outside of the norm. When a big mining trucks, you know how huge these things are, the size of a house, the driver starts driving erratically, or something's going wrong. He's driving where he shouldn't. Putting early warning systems in place. Movement around high-risk incidents within those plants. It's really heavy equipment, huge tons and tons of ore. Things can go wrong very, very quickly. Important patterns of behavior, as I said, and linked to high-risk incidents and so forth. We could marry access control systems, safety monitoring systems, all kinds. We, at the moment for them, we're marrying 14 different data sources to run these algorithms on, to give us a really good idea of what's happening in the plant right now in any area of the plant. And of course, patterns to understand, predict, and prevent health risks to their team members. You know, these are really important things to look at. Guys, I'm going to leave us 5 minutes. As I say, I've got another hidden use case here around the security and intelligence, and I'll only mention very briefly the reason we loved so much using that use, or working on that use case, is very kindly the customer I work with. Again, you know where I come from, where I was born and grew up before I came back to the UK. work with has allowed us, because we understand the syndicates and operators, the guys who steal diamonds also operate child trafficking, rhino poaching, money laundering, guns, all kinds of things like that. It allowed me to work with the SA National Parks and the anti-rhino poaching unit to give them intelligence to find out where guns were flowing through, where they were coming in, and really make a huge impact, close down 2 syndicates. And it's kind of, and I'll finish boring you now. I'll finish with saying, I was interviewed by CNN and the Chicago Tribune 2 years ago, and I was kind of really annoyed because, journalists, I wasn't briefed before the time. This lady was saying to me, why rhinos and not people? And I was saying to a lady, I can't show you the people I'm talking about, but we closed down 2 syndicates. The rhino poaching is about a fifth of the horrible stuff they get up to. It was a big when you don't understand, but I kind of closed down the interview then. It was pretty annoyed with somebody telling me all of that. But I'm going to stop here, guys. I'd love to hear some questions if you have. I'm hoping this showed you some of the art of the possible, and really being able to apply to what you're doing. And guys, I have used many of these use cases across the board. For De Beers, looking at people behavior in groups, I use market basket analysis, what we use in marketing. And you go to a shop, what do you buy in the same basket? I wanted to know who's always in the same basket and what do they do that's the same. Same algorithms, it's used in marketing and sales. So it's a bit of an art, but hopefully you can envision what can be done in your environments. I see, Daniel, I've got a question. Thank you from you. So Daniel, you've asked, it's a huge pleasure. I'm happy, you found value, Daniel. Can you point to any more resources covering the intersection of Lean Six Sigma, data science, and AI? Oh, absolutely, Daniel. I can send you some, specifically the courses that we teach. We teach the semiconductor customer and Anglo American Platinum. I've got specific pieces of lessons that specifically focuses on that, that shows you the DMAIC, for instance, principles and how they marry with CRISP and the methodologies we use for AI. You map them directly, and with pleasure, Daniel, I'll share those with you. Sina,
I think there's, I think also, Annie, by the way, thanks, because I agree with Dan. Annie, I've interviewed you a couple of times under a couple of hats, and I never tire hearing some of those use cases. So that's really cool. The other thing that we'd like to say as well, Daniel, is we put a lot of resources on our site as well. So there is, for example, a free ebook there. It touches less on some resources and the intersections. As I said, I think, Annie, what we'll do, please have a look around our site. You'll see some information there. You'll see a couple of other recordings from what we've done, but you'll see some resources. Annie, let's pick up after this and actually get a couple of links across. I think would help.
Yeah, and that specific one, I won't be on the website. It's not sort of openly shared, but I'll take a pleasure, Senar, as well. Lovely again to meet you. Daniel, I'll share those, we can share directly with Daniel. But guys, if any of the others of you are interested, happy to share. Those are from our training decks. They explain very, very well how Lean Six Sigma, data science, and AI interlinks. Yeah. But yes, guys, definitely go to the website. There's loads of free resources. Some of our previous webinars. There's the AI readiness assessment. A little bit more info about that. Please go have a look. These guys in our marketing team and sales team, their Elise has posted you the link to datashack.com. They work very, very hard in making sure we put the right stuff on there for you guys, and it's informative and not just something that looks pretty. You can actually get some things from there.
I think, and looking at the question as well, that's what I wanted to pick up there, Annie. It's kind of where we come from, right? Because here's the thing, and I know it's something you talked about at last year's event. So the rerun of this was from Smart Manufacturing up in Coventry, just a couple of weeks ago. But last week we were talking around kind of this the Silicon Valley mindset of throwing out all that we've done. within manufacturing, an approach that we know brings down defects, reduces waste and increases or helps you build better products. And I think that Silicon Valley mindset or the hype around AI, I've even seen people that I've known, respected people from the kind of AI industry say this is the magic bullet, and yet if it's not applied in certain ways, it's not going to work, and that's why we see those failure rates. So it's something I know, Annie, you and I are very passionate about. The other place I'd mention is Annie. Annie, you've also posted quite a lot of comments around on LinkedIn as well, some articles there. So if you search on Annie and some of her articles, it's how we feel about this. What's very
and
interesting,
I'll
Annie,
just before you move on, I wanted to, guys, also, as I say, Professor von Schil, I had great conversations with him at SME. We went for a quick catch up, and he was asking me, he's a big tester, he's a huge academic, and he's really just a industry guru. He invented, or he's the coiner or inventor of Industry 4.0, and he was saying to me, Annie, we hear such a hype these days. What is AI all about? What do you think it is? And when I finished, he's like, that was a test. You really know what it's all about, And I was like, thanks, Henrik. I didn't know you were testing me. But we had quite a giggle about it. But the biggest conversation we had in our meeting was that AI needs people. It will always need people. The single most asked question I get in training classes, I lecture. We've got a program with Dell in Africa, where we are teaching underprivileged kids data science skills, introduce some programs within Dell's sponsorship of the Square Kilometre Array up in the Karoo in Africa, teaching the surrounding kids data science skills and so forth. The question by these, I teach a class called the Day in the Life of a Data Scientist, because they want to know, if I get this job, what will I be doing? But the question in class, I get the single most asked question is, will AI take my job? And you're going to get asked this from your workforce. Will AI take my job? No, it will make your job easier. It can do the mundane things that you don't necessarily have time for. The worst thing, guys, when in my day, I've always likened it to being a DHL driver, picking up packages of data and then putting it together in a warehouse and trying to analyze it. That was 70 to 80% of the work I was doing. The biggest work should be running it through an algorithm and it giving you predictions, prescriptions that you can action. That's what the value of AI is, guys. And, I think I definitely would love, to hear from Mark. Mark, I've got one or two questions I'd love for you to elaborate. I'm definitely not as skilled and verbose as you around the scope 3. Guys, it's becoming so important. And again, Professor von Schil spoke to manufacturers at the National Manufacturing Summit about monetizing your these things that you think you are being slammed with and tariffs you're being slammed with. You can do this well, but Mark, I'd love to hear from you. What do you see evolving in the scope 3 environment? Where are the biggest sort of pitfalls that you see customers struggling with getting into analyzing their supply chains better and embedding scope 3?
Some very good points you brought out. Also, an interesting question. I think the biggest challenge to people understanding scope 3 is they view it as a technology problem. In fact, it's a people problem.
Absolutely.
The technology represents 1%. The technology can achieve so much. What a lot of people seem to forget is it's about the data. Where is that data held? That data that they need is within the supply chain and the extended supply chain. And it's accessing that. That is the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that regardless, scope 3 is a data problem. Data, as you mentioned, but when we look at the business case, which applies to everything, we doing something for scope 3, it's probably the best sales tool your company will ever get.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? It seems strange. Well, The reality is that most large customers and even medium-sized customers now are marking tenders and allocating between 10 and 20% of their procurement scorecard points to ESG. If you can prove that you are managing that, you have a very happy customer because it saves them a load of work, and B, you are going to end up getting a lot more sales than an organisation that doesn't. But what you've done with Scope 3, you've laid the groundwork for so many more possibilities. Remember, this is like a jigsaw puzzle. We put it down one piece at a time, and you are building the foundations, and the foundations is data.
Absolutely.
That answers it.
Yes, Mark, absolutely. And what you just said is kind of prophetic. On Tuesday morning, I spoke with one of the very large British motor manufacturers, of which Al drives their vehicle. But we spoke with somebody in their supply chain, but he was really looking at understanding the semiconductors they procure. And as you say, Scope 3 is but one way of looking at your supply chain. There's other things he wanted to, specifically know, what are other customers or companies within the industry like them doing, and what can we use intelligence in the market to actually get us there, and make it being proactive and being in that outperform, space. Those are the things. If you understand your supply chain, Scope 3 is one of the most important things that make you saleable to your customer, and sustainable, and pay less taxes and those kinds of things. But that's not the only win. As you say, that wins so many other things. And I think it's a really good sort of point to ponder.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at time now.
Yeah,
so we're going to wrap things up. We're actually losing people now, I think, as well as they drop off. Annie, thank you ever so much. Again,
thank you, everyone.
I've enjoyed that. I think the comments have come back. I know that we have, as I mentioned, there are a number of people that registered because they want the recording. Again, there were a couple of questions that we had in from those guys. So what we'll do is we'll get those across. We'll kind of wrap up now. What I'd like to kind of just highlight is that what we'll look at doing is doing something with Mark around Scope 3 emissions. So if that's something anyone's interested in, please let us know.
Please let us know.
We launched a PR around, I think, I'm going to bring it back to the title. It allows me to be the kind of showman. We talked around competing and winning, and this is the thing. Out-competing a competition. Manufacturers are innovators. Manufacturers they take calculated risks and they innovate. And one of those things again is to compete and win out there in the marketplace. So thank you ever so much for your time. I know a couple of people on this call today. We've got Annie, you and I are meeting. We're going to go and have some meetings and some coffee, etc. But thank you for your time today, and we'll get out the recording very, very shortly.
Thanks, everyone. Once again, really appreciate your attendance. Thank you. Bye.